Morning guys, and welcome to our final week in the Do Something series. Before we get started, just a couple of things to let you know about. We have our Zoom call at 10 this Sunday. It'd be great to see you there. Pop on and say hello. But also this then is our last week of being online for the next few weeks because we have our Easter program coming up. So after this week, we then have our Palm Sunday and our Easter Sunday services, which are all ages. So I really encourage you guys to get involved, get logged onto the Zoom with the wider church for the next coming Sundays. But don't forget, this Sunday we are having our Zoom at 10 o'clock, so log on and I'd love to see you there. Otherwise, let's crack on with our final talk in the series of Do Something. Now, to start things off, my question for you is this. Have you ever got lost? Like, I'm talking properly lost. Maybe you think back to when you were a kid and, you're in the supermarket and you're looking at your favourite cereal and you're dreaming that your mum or your dad are just going to kind of say, yeah, do you know what? Put it in the basket, you can have it. And you got so lost at looking at this cereal, this beautiful thing, that you turn around and you realise they've scuttled off, they've moved on, and suddenly you're a little kid and you're stood in the supermarket kind of going, oh my goodness me, what do I do now? A sudden panic kind of sets over you. Maybe that's happened for you, maybe it hasn't happened for you. Maybe you've been more along the lines of you've been trying to find a friend's house and you've been wandering around the estate, you've taken a wrong turn, and actually you're suddenly on this street that you have absolutely no idea where you are, and you're suddenly trying to get Google Maps up to help you figure out where you are. But feeling lost can sometimes make us feel like, oh, what do I do next? What do I do now? Like I'm lost. And do you know what? We've all felt that at some point in our lives, and you're going to feel that at more times in your life to come. It's a kind of a natural feeling, and I think it's a feeling that we feel when we start to look at injustice. And over the last few weeks, I don't know about you, but as we talked about injustice, I kind of feel that feeling bubbling up in me that says, well, what do I do now? Because injustice can feel big, can't it? It can feel like that big thing that just almost feels too big to grasp, that you're kind of like, what do I do now? What do I do about it? If you remember, injustice is something that is not fair, that's not equal, that's not right. And over the past few weeks, we've looked at how God really does care about bringing justice. And in his care, he's actually called us and challenged us to get involved with his work, to be the people that bring about justice to this world, to get involved. But you know what? That feels like a massive challenge. When I sit back and I think about what that really means, that feels huge. That feels huge. What is little old me going to be able to do about that? And maybe you feel the same. Maybe you look around and actually it feels really hopeless. You're like, I just don't see how I can do anything to change this. It just feels too big. Or maybe you look around and you do kind of feel a sense of hope, but you just don't quite know how to get involved with it. You're like, I know that things can change, I just don't know what to do about it. So I'm kind of letting other people sort of get on with it because I know that some people have an idea of how this can change. Or maybe you feel a little bit like, your kid self in the supermarket, that you see it all around you and it kind of makes you feel really unnerving, and you're just like, I just don't know what to do now. I want to do something to make this right, but I just don't know what to do. Or maybe you're kind of in it and you're thinking, no, I'm making steps to do about something. I'm seeing some stuff that's happening in school and I'm speaking out, but it's hard. It's hard. I'm being hit back with this kind of stuff. It's hard to kind of trudge through it. Actually doing something is hard. Or maybe you're the person who's actually feeling like they're receiving some of the injustices and you're trying to speak out about it. You're trying to speak about it, but again, it's hard. It's a trudge. And I get that feeling. I get that feeling because actually doing something about injustice feels hard. It's not an easy thing to do. It feels like actually it's for somebody bigger. It's for somebody else to kind of sort out. It's such a big topic that actually I'm not sure I have the ability to be able to do something about it. But this morning, I want to tell you that you are somebody. You are somebody and you can do something about it. Your voice really matters in bringing about justice to areas where we see injustice. And like we saw last week, God knows that, and God wants you to hear that you are somebody and you can make a difference. So this morning we're going to dive into a story in the Bible to help us look at what we can do and continue to do about injustice. Okay, so to help us out this morning, we are going to look at a guy in the Bible named James. Now, interesting fact about James is actually Jesus' half-brother. And after Jesus had died and rose back to life again, Jesus became a leader in the early church. Now, we're going to pick up in this letter that he's writing to a group of Christians that are facing injustice in their world. Now, James is wanting to encourage them and let them know that they can do something about it. This is what he said. Suppose a brother or sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to them, "Go in peace, keep warm and well fed," but does nothing about their physical needs, what good is it? Okay, so what James is saying here kind of feels a little bit harsh, doesn't it? He's saying, you walk past this stuff that's going on and maybe you offer some words of hope that things will eventually change. But if that's not followed up with action, is that actually enough? And do you know what? Reading it kind of stings a little bit, doesn't it? Because we can so easily fall into that camp that says, I see this, but it feels too big and too huge. And actually, I'm going to kind of offer some words to this rather than maybe my actions. And we fall into the same camp as hundreds and millions of people that are offering up prayers to kind of hope that things will change. And maybe you're somebody who feels like they're being injustice is coming at them, and that hope starts to dwindle because you feel like, is something actually going to happen that makes this change? Is there action to it? Now, I'm not saying praying about this stuff is bad, no, because praying about this stuff is really good. But if it's not followed up with something, if it's not followed up with an action, does that actually really bring about much change? Or actually, are we called to do more than just pray about it? Well, let's look at what James says next in this verse and how actually James links our actions and what we do with our faith. Let's have a look. In the same way, faith by itself, it is not accompanied by action, is dead. So what James is saying here is that our faith is connected to our actions. So if we say we have faith, but it's not motivating us to do something, then something about our faith is dying. Something is just not quite right here. It's off. And why is this important? It's important because when we look at Jesus, we see someone who is always doing something about injustice. And as followers of Christ, we want to be more like him. So actually, when we allow our words to turn into actions, our hearts and our actions and who we are start to become more like the person that we're praying to. We start to become more like Jesus. He was always doing something about injustice, so we are called to do something about it. So when we think about the injustices that kind of bubble up a sense of passion in our hearts that make us want to act, as we remember the stuff that's going on, even if it's huge in this world, that God looks at and says, this isn't right. We remember that we are called, we are created. God created us to be the people that's doing something about it. Not just people that say some words about it, but actually turn those words into actions. Because when we do, what we do is we reflect God's heart for justice. We reflect God's heart to justice to the people around us. So people that are looking in and see that we're doing something catch a glimpse of God's heart to bring justice to situations that need it. So remember this, never stop doing something about injustice. Even if it feels overwhelming and too big and kind of too massive to take on. Remember that God is with you and he wants you to keep on doing something, because even the smallest changes are changes and they're steps in the right direction. We see in God's word that he says never give up, never stop going. The Apostle Paul wrote this. He said, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people. Paul says, don't grow weary. In other words, don't give up. Don't give up the fight. Keep on pushing. Keep on pushing. I know that sounds, it's easier said than done, isn't it? Sometimes things are weary and they really kind of knock us down. And sometimes it's okay to say, right, I just need to just catch my breath for a moment. But I think in that moment, it's not kind of putting something to the side and never coming back to it. It's kind of remembering that I need to keep coming back to it. This fight isn't over. Paul uses this illustration of a harvest, doesn't he? And although we're not farmers, we can kind of pick up the sense of it, saying that keep going. I know you might not be able to see something here, might not be able to see the kind of fruits that it's coming from, but you will. The harvest will be reaped in the end. We will see the good that comes from it. Take a seed, for example. If you plant a seed in the ground, if you just leave it, if you just do one thing once and just leave it, you might fluke the fact that it will grow, but the most of the time it's not going to grow. It's not going to do anything unless you tend to it, unless you keep coming back to it, you water it, you pull the weeds away from it, and you allow it the space to actually grow. Initially you don't see the effects that you're having, but eventually you will. So keep on going, even if it feels hard, even if it feels difficult, even if it feels like you're not seeing that seed grow into something that changes. Keep going. Keep going. Trust that the Lord is by your side and he wants you to do this and will give us the strength and the motivation and the perseverance to keep fighting this fight. It's on God's heart. It's what Jesus did, and it's what he wants us to do. So never stop doing something about injustice. So when it comes to injustice, it's not just a one-time thing. You think about that seed as something that we need to just keep coming back to and keep going over. Something as followers of Jesus that we are called to make part of who we are and what we do. It's a lifelong thing that we are called to do. So maybe you're sitting here thinking, okay, I hear all this stuff, I've heard all this stuff over these past 3 weeks, but I'm just not sure where to start. How do I actually start doing something and making this part of who I am? Well, I think there's 4 places that we can start. The first is that speak up. The first is speak up. So if you see something, if you see an injustice that's going on around you, say something about it. Start a conversation. Maybe you want to bring the awareness to somebody else. Maybe you want to start talking to the people around you about something that you're seeing or something that's close to your heart. Use your voice. Your voice is a really powerful thing. Use it. Speak up. Say something about what you're seeing. The second is use your influence. All of us have influence. All of us in our spheres have some sort of influence with people. Maybe it's with friends, maybe it's with a team that you play for, maybe it's with a larger group of people, but we all have influence. Use it. Let them know of your heart of changing things for a certain thing. Educate them. Tell them about it. Get them involved in some of the stuff that you're doing. Help others to see things as you are seeing it. The next thing that we can do, the third thing, is use our gifts. Use our talents. Now, doing something about injustice, like doing something that you feel is right about something, doesn't mean you need to give up on everything else that you're doing. Doesn't mean you need to stop doing this or stop doing that or stop doing something that you're good at. But maybe it's about bringing that passion into those things and using it. Maybe your passion and your gifting is making videos for YouTube or Instagram. Maybe it's about making something and sharing something on there that brings people together over this passion that you have. Use your gifts. Use your influence with the people that you have. Share stuff on social media that you see that you're really passionate about. And the final thing is give time. Is carve time in who we are. Like, we give time to the things that are important, don't we? We give time to the things that we think are good and are good for us, so we give it time. This also needs time. Volunteering for things, getting involved with things, not just as a one-off thing, but actually as something that becomes a rhythm in what we do. Give it your time. And maybe Maybe this is the first time over this series that you've actually really thought about that God really cares about injustice and has actually empowered us to do something about it. And if that is the case, then start to talk about it. Like, chat to us at Vibe, chat to a parent, chat to a trusted adult about what you can really start to do, how you can start to speak up and use your voice and your gifts and your influence. We want to help you in this journey. But make sure it becomes something that you're constantly thinking about, becomes a rhythm of your day-to-day life. The seed's not going to grow just from one simple watering. Something that we need to come back to. And it might be a long time down the road that we see something, but small steps, small changes are all good, positive changes. So as we turn our words into actions, as our heart becomes more like the person that we follow, that is Jesus. My prayer is that we capture that glimpse, and that we want to just continually want to do something about injustice. So guys, that brings an end to our 4-week series on injustice. Again, if you have any questions, any concerns, any prayer requests, then please do drop us a line on Instagram, or drop us an email, or maybe chat to a trusted adult that you have or a parent about it. But just always remember that you are somebody, that you can do something about injustice, that God has gifted you and empowered you to be a voice and to bring about change, and never stop doing something about it. Guys, have a great week, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.